right, folks, good morning. Good morning and welcome to the first Joe Mangiacotti Show of 2021. Actually, I think we're the first live talk show of 2021 on the station. I have to check with that. I don't know. Jazz, behind the glass. Good morning, Jazz. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2021.
Good morning. Welcome to 2021. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you. We actually, because what did we do yesterday? It was all pre-programming, right? It was just the holiday. We had no live shows yesterday, did we?
No, I don't think
so. We're actually the first actual live talk show of 2021 on WCRN flagship station. That's awesome. So we're kicking it off. Our first Saturday of 2021, the first TJM Show of 2021. It will also be the first Politically Speaking at 7 o'clock. Senator Mike Moore joins us in studio to do Politically Speaking, and we'll be talking about what went on up at Beacon Hill for this past year, your opportunity to ask him questions and talk to a sitting state senator and get something off your mind or ask a question. Let's take care of some 411. So, of course, we're live streaming, folks, on the TuneIn app. Just punch in WCRN, and there you are. You can take us anywhere in there. You can even tell Alexa, play WCRN. She'll do that wherever you are. That's pretty awesome. Don't forget, we're live streaming on our Facebook page, not the station page, but my page, which is Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. Facebook, you've got the audio there. There's a camera in the corner of the studio, but not a big deal. It's the audio that you can get there. You can join the conversation, as you always can, as you could in 2019, 2020, 2017. Keep going. 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. We have a text line that's up and running. So if you want to text the show in real time at 617-297-8388. We monitor it. I don't always see it the moment it comes in, but it's in front of me with the screen. It's the same screen if you actually email us at textjoeontheradio@gmail.com. It appears on the same screen. That's meant for real time. If you want to get a hold of the show, not while we're on the air, just during normal business hours, use the JoeMShow at gmail.com or call us at 508-603-9778. So our handle for social media, as I was saying, as it is for Facebook, Joe Mangi Show, it works for Twitter, it works for Instagram, and now Parler, because Parler's a big thing. Right, Jazz? That's shot up in popularity, especially since the election.
Oh, I know. It's been going crazy, right?
They don't, they're not left activists like Twitter is, like Mr. Dorsey is, who will, it's not even attempted to conceal it or pretend that they're being biased and fair. They are so slanted, and we can talk about that because we've got, Tuesday is the special election in Georgia. That is huge. That is going to be a huge undertaking it because it's in essence, it's the line, people. It's holding the line that will either turn the entire United States government to the Democrats and, unfortunately, progressive far left and socialists. If that happens, both chambers of the House and the White House goes there. At least the court's a little even that way. But what I was thinking, Jazz, is before the senator comes in and we get into that, take this opportunity. I'd like to do resolutions. I don't know if people still do that, or if we should get a break from a resolution for 2020 if we've been through enough. But do you have any resolutions?
My resolution is to quit smoking, but I feel like I do that every once in a while. This year, I'm pretty serious about it, though. So
quit smoking is a standard? Is that what you're telling me? Every year you do the same one?
No, usually I do different ones. The last couple of years I haven't had one because I've just been, trying to get my own life on track and trying to get through school and everything, and I feel like that was enough, Yeah. But this year I've been kind of noticing, it's time to quit
Well,
smoking.
How long? Have you smoked since you were a teenager type of thing?
Yeah, I started smoking when I was 11.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So you're pushing 20 years.
Yeah. So now that I hit the 30, now that I'm 30, I'm like, okay.
Right.
I can't believe I've already been smoking for this long,
And has the doctor ever done an X-ray to show you, say, hey,
I've never had any issues thus far, but I already do have bad lungs. I mean, I already have asthma and I have chronic pneumonia.
Right.
And
with
I smoke.
asthma?
Right. So it's time to quit, and this is my year.
Okay. Well, that's a serious one, and good luck to that, because that's a serious resolution, because it's so health connected.
Right, and it's so important with the things that I have.
And especially since we do have the whole coronavirus out there floating around, you don't want
exactly
compromised lungs and all that. So good luck with that, and we should hold you to that. We should we should throw a water balloon at you or something every time we see you with a cigarette. I mean, are you talking like a pack a day, or do you?
Oh no. When I was younger, I used to smoke upwards of a pack a day. When I was driving a tow truck, I used to smoke a pack and a half a day.
A tow truck.
Yep. I've done it all.
Oh my goodness, driving a tow truck, I love it.
Yep.
And well, that seems that kind of seems like it. Yeah, 2 o'clock in the morning, flashing lights,
exactly.
rainy water, like you gotta have a cigarette going.
Exactly. Now I only smoke a couple a day, probably like 3 to 5.
Right.
So.
Right. But do you feel it?
Yes.
You're feeling it. See, yeah. I thank God I never got into smoking because I have an addictive personality, and that would have been a horrible path for me. And you can't tell me that anybody who takes you're 11, 12, 13, whatever it is, and peer pressure gets you to try your first cigarette, and you go, oh my God, I love that. Mm-hmm. Nobody does that. Right. You cough and you hack, and it's disgusting. But you force yourself because you've got to fit in or be cool or whatever the reason is. I'm just glad I never got into it because I probably never would have been able to quit.
Yeah, glad.
Thank goodness for that. Now, all the other habits we haven't been able to quit. But smoking, so the resolution. So do you have any other resolution like to learn a language, travel somewhere, be nicer, be meaner, be more independent, be...
My other thing would definitely be to start saving to travel because I just moved in with my boyfriend. I just bought a new car. I'm finishing school this semester. So, I'm already kind of moving in the direction of getting things all lined up for myself. It's just a matter of now,
Sure.
Yeah, having fun.
Well, those are good predictions. Did you make any in the beginning of 2020? Any resolutions?
In the beginning of 2020, I was...
So did you make any and meet them or not meet them for the year?
I didn't make any because
you weren't there last year.
Yeah, I was working on school last year, so I was kind of just like, I want to get good grades, and that's all I want to worry about.
That was your concentrating good grades, and we got good grades.
Yes,
right.
straight A's.
So you you made kind of a resolution.
Yeah,
you made it, so that's
good.
And
I took sign language, so I kind of learned a new language. So
I know what this is. This and this and this. All right. So American Sign Language. I know a little of that. I didn't know you knew that. That's awesome.
Yep.
So, what about predictions? Do you have any? Let's do. I have some predictions. Do you have any predictions for 2021?
I feel like no matter what happens with the presidency, we are going to have a little bit of an outrage on both sides. I think if they do allow Biden to just go ahead and take the seat, I think everybody who's a Trump supporter and, even some of the more moderate people are not going to be happy with that. And
because their political position or because of the blatant irregularities, which is just a nice way of saying cheating.
I mean, it's just been a cluster F,
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you lose sight of what our country's really built on if this is allowed.
Right.
And that's kind of how I feel about it. Like on one level, yes, the politics matter and who each person is a huge part of it. But then on the other level, I mean, the wide amount of stories of fraud and everything else, you can't not.
But they're not just stories.
Right, exactly.
We actually have hundreds, actually thousands of affidavits of people sworn under pains and penalties of perjury. We have video of suitcases, or let me just say cases. The defense to that video, by the way, well, those aren't suitcases. I mean, talk about misdirection in just how stupid is that? Cases being removed from under the table and ran through the machines in the middle of the night while counters were sent home. And then the video of certain workers running the same ballot through the machine multiple times. It's on video. So we not only do we have the mathematical irregularities of the votes, the tallies, that they just don't happen, these ridiculous spikes, the down ballot issue, where ballots are run with only the presidential clicked off, no other race, How does that happen in such large numbers?
Well,
so we have all
that.
that.
When have we ever had such a large voter turnout? When have we ever, this...
Well, that's the other thing.
It just doesn't make sense.
We're supposed to be, we're led to believe, or supposed to be led to believe, that Joe Biden got more votes than not only any other president ever, but also Barack Obama. Barack Obama, who actually had charisma and a following. I mean, Joe couldn't, he's had what, 7, 8 people at a rally? I mean, this guy, compared to a Trump rally, if you were just to look at that, something's not wrong. So all of that is just the gut feeling. But we can put a pin in all that and we can discard all that. But if we look at the actual videotapes of the cheating taking place, of the magical ballots appearing, of the affidavits, of the testimony, right? We've got the truck driver where his truck disappears. He's also tens of thousands of ballots are put on his truck and he's told to drive it to another state. When does that happen? So the integrity of the entire system has been compromised and lost. And Jazz, to what you're saying, if Joe Biden is allowed to be sworn in on the 20th, yes, there's going to be people upset. And not just Trump supporters, but anybody who loves this country and wants the integrity of the elections. Because if we take away our belief in our confidence in our electoral process, in our elections, that we, you and me, Jazz, and you listening in the car or in bed or at the coffee table, at your breakfast table right now, if you don't have confidence that your vote is actually counted and that illegal votes aren't counted, if the one power that we have, and that's at the ballot box, is irrelevant, if our candidates are predetermined and selected by the inner parties, we're done. The country's not the country. It's not the United States of America anymore. We're living in here we go. This is 2020 is a red pill year. And borrowing and lending from the Matrix, folks, right? Take the pill. Oh, the red pill, it's like we've taken the red pill and it's exposed. 2020 has exposed the hypocrisy in our government. It has exposed the corruption to the core. It's exposed our lack of government expertise, right? And it's exposed experts, for that matter. It's shown us that these governors and senators and reps that we put so much faith and confidence in are pretty much jermokes. And they're not, they tell us one thing, well, they do another. The hypocrisy has been highlighted. The ineptness of the government has been highlighted. And if we are in a position, and if we do not do something, and that's why this whole part, not just the 230 being removed, but the president wanted in the bill, he wanted the review of the election. We have got to not just restore the confidence, but actually the integrity of the election process, which means this whole blind mass mailing voter ballot thing has got to go away. We've got to bring it back to basics. None of these machines should ever be able to be connected to the internet. There's no reason for it. There's no legitimate reason to say that. It's just like there's no legitimate argument that you have against voter ID. We've got to go back to, in essence, a paper ballot. Whatever version, whether you punch it, you exit, you fill in a circle, the point is, we've got to go back to one person, one vote, adhere to the laws that we've had, that you can't be in possession of more than one ballot and it has to be yours. This idea of dropping ballot boxes all over the place is ridiculous and it's open for fraud. This was being said by the president. It was being said by talking heads. It was being said by me and Mike Wade. All of us here, we were saying that this is just opening it up. We had a system in place called absentee ballot, and we could have left that alone when those are done right. Florida had a problem in 2020, right? They really did. And they fixed it, and they came back strong, and they knew their numbers election night. This stopped the counting in the middle of the night, and then you see the numbers, and then we actually have the Chiron, Right, we have videotape of Chiron where we see Donald Trump drop 500 and some odd at the same time Joe Biden's numbers go up the exact same number that Trump went down. How does the numbers go down in a count?
I never thought that was possible. It shouldn't be possible, right?
It shouldn't. It doesn't work that way. So the prediction you're making is if we don't get our confidence back and get the elections process under control and back to with integrity and legitimacy, that we'll have civil war or just protests?
I just think there's going to be unrest on the 20th anyways, regardless of what actually happens one way or the other. I think the entire country is going to be upset with it.
Well, I think there's a Trump support march, a rally coming up for Tuesday at the I think it's when's the 6th? It's going to come up for the 6th. Which is Tuesday, because that's the
Wednesday.
Next day that the Congress accepts the slate. Now, we can get into this because as president of the Senate, Mike Pence plays a big role in this, folks. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let me just jump to the phones because some people are waiting. Good morning, Mark. Welcome to 2021. Happy New Year to you, and you still look marvelous, man. Mark, do we have Mark, Jess?
Yeah.
Hey, Mark.
Am I on the air?
You are on the air now. Welcome to 2021.
Yeah, welcome. It's good to hear the first Springer radio talk show host back on the air. I'm going to tell you, conservative talk radio for the past 2 weeks has been a wasteland. I mean, you think these talk show hosts, they all go on 2-week hiatuses at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You would think one of them would figure out, gee, everybody else is on hiatus. If I stay on the air, my ratings will go through the roof. But I guess they're not smart enough to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have a choice about last Saturday because the station programming went. But if the station had done it, I would have been here on Saturday morning on day after Christmas. Yeah. But hey, the station is the programming. But I'm glad to be back on.
You'd think they would figure it out. Well, anyways, that's a topic for another time. Anyways, I hear Nancy Pelosi, her residence was vandalized last night.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
Huh.
They also said that they found a pig's head. I'm serious.
Oh.
That's what I heard on Channel 5. That's what they reported.
Really?
And her townhouse, the front of her townhouse, it was a red brick job, so it was probably her Washington, D.C. residence, because it was red brick. I don't think her digs out in California were red brick. But, yeah, spray painted and with a pig's head left on the front of her house.
Well, all right, so I pulled that up. On Friday, photos surfaced on social media, TMZ, showing graffiti on a San Francisco garage door, purportedly the home of Democratic congressional leader. Apparently, spray-painted messages read 2K with the dollar sign, so $2,000, with a line through it. Cancel rent. We want everything. Another line appeared to read UB, referring to the concept of universal basic income. So it was the San Francisco home, Mark.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyways,
yeah.
If these people think that they're going to escape the wrath of the alt-left, they're sadly mistaken.
Right. I agree.
Because these people are radical Bolsheviks.
Not only are they radical and they're violent, but there's no consequences, Mark. They're protected by the establishment. Not only do they don't get charged, but if they get taken in, they're let out with bail or worse, right? We saw these leaders, Joe Biden's staff, Nancy Pelosi's staff, bailing out these people, putting up the bail, right? Those bail projects that they put in.
Yeah.
So they have no consequences. So if there is no, I mean, just like the asinine move of...
You see, these people don't realize that these alt-left radical revolutionaries, that they're cannibalistic. They eat their own.
They will. They have started to, right? We've seen cancel culture start to reach into what we thought was protected class. Nobody's protected when it comes to them, Mark. You're right.
Robespierre.
They'll eat their own.
Yeah, Robespierre.
Yeah.
He didn't escape the guillotine. Okay.
Exactly.
He didn't escape the guillotine.
Didn't escape.
And he
right.
was the he laid the groundwork for the French Revolution, and he wound up on the chopping block himself.
Mm-hmm.
So they ate their own. Okay,
Yeah.
but they don't realize that because they don't take the time to read history. They don't know that history repeats itself.
This kind of
find out the hard way.
This kind
They're
of
gonna find out the hard way.
Yeah, and Mark, this kind of fell through the cracks. Did you know they actually did remove the Abraham Lincoln statue in Boston the other day? Last
they're
week.
melting it down.
They took it off. They removed it. Whatever they're going to do with it now. But the point is, they removed it. And what is this when they say, well, somebody's offended? How many people have to be? I'm offended by a lot of things, but I don't see them being corrected. So how many people does something need to be offended by? Or does it just take a few jamokes in the mother's basement on Twitter with multiple accounts to raise the issue? Why is corporate America?
The main guy behind that was a BU college professor. All right? He was the main guy behind that. I forget his name, Flores or something. He's a BU professor at alt left, and he raised hell about it. And to shut him up, basically, they removed the statue. Well, it's all part of the Cultural Revolution.
See, and that's where I say, this is what you're paying huge tuition to send your children to get this very one-sided, ultra-left, progressive stuff that most parents probably don't agree with. And then they talk about, Mark, right? They want us to forgive student loans. So on top of everything else, the insult here, the salt to the injury, is that the taxpayers are going to pay these ridiculous fees, right, with the admission fees, because you can get a great education and you don't have to spend $80,000 a year, right? You can go to a school and get a good education. It's about the work. And what is this that they, Nancy Pelosi et al. Wants to cancel student debt? Well, what happens to the kid who didn't go to college because of the cost and they went to a trade school or they started a business? Are we going to give them the equivalent of a college education and seed money? I mean, what is this? It's your choice. Nobody's forcing you to go to school. And you don't have to go to the school with the big price tag. You can go to the state school, go to the University of Massachusetts. It's a great school. So this all ties into
it. The bottom line is that you got the guy who freed the slaves.
Yeah.
He signed the Emancipation
Proclamation. Yep.
Yeah. And what do? They remove his statue because he's such a racist.
Look, this comes down to Mark. Mark,
does that make any sense to you?
It makes no sense to me. And the problem is you cannot place 2020 codes and beliefs and understandings and political correctness to someone in 1860, much less 1750, much less 1619, or any other time era. In other words, you cannot apply today's understanding and today's behavior and norms to society.
You can look at it this way. You had U.S. senators in 1861, all right? A lot of them didn't even have running water. They were still using chamber pots.
Absolutely.
Okay? U.S. senators using chamber pots, and they didn't have running water. I mean, how they lived in a different world.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. And if you cannot intellectually understand and place yourself in that time frame, because I look at the reverse of this. We were the first major nation to eliminate slavery. We had states who had eliminated it long before it became an issue in the Civil War. Massachusetts, for one. In other words, slavery existed long before the United States did, right? And therefore, it was just part of the culture when the country was formed. But we put an end to it. But nobody wants to give the country credit.
When did the country of Cuba eliminate slavery? 20 years after we did.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know, actually. So did they? But
yeah. Well, look it up.
Yeah, I will look it up because it's a great question.
The United States did.
But we had it all over the globe, when we eliminated, but nobody seems to say, you know what, America was the first in this. Good for America for being able to correct this incredible wrong. But we don't get that credit. But are we against the clock, Jess?
Yes, we are.
Mark, did you have something to say, Jess?
I did just want to add one quick thing. It's funny that we are even thinking about these things, too, because why would we remove a statue that's part of our history, that's part of who we are as a country becoming? You know, we took those steps to eliminate slavery and to memorialize Lincoln. So then why would we then take it down?
Well, that's always been the argument about, which ones. And I can get into maybe some certain ones belong in a museum and not in the square. But Abraham Lincoln isn't one of them. Mark, thank you for the call, but we do have to take a break. Scott, Richard, others on the line. If you can stay through the break, we'll get you on the other side. This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Stick with us. Welcome to 2021, people.
This is Sean Burke, president of the Licensed Private Detectives Association of Massachusetts, asking you to visit us at lpdam.org when you think you need a private investigator. Don't let your emotions negatively affect your future. Get your answers through a Massachusetts licensed private investigator. Get the facts without risking your credibility by unknowingly committing a criminal offense.
I just pulled up the Pelosi article on CBS San Francisco, and it says there was also a severed pig's head in a pool of red blood and a pool of red paint left in the front of the garage door.
Tune into AM 830 WCRN Sunday mornings at 7:30 for case files from the LPDM or anytime at lpdmcasefiles.com.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers 1-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
877 Drive Ed. Who's Ed?
That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click Levante'sAutoSchool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. 877 Drive Ed.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
It's time to go out with Joe.
Welcome to this edition of Out with Joe, brought to you by Nothing But Cakes in White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. And this week, we're going to talk about Boston and other communities because they are rolling back on their reopening plans. We thought that was important that you know that. Mayor Marty Walsh announced on Monday this past week that Boston and other nearby communities will roll back reopening protocols in an effort to stem rising coronavirus case counts and shut down certain venues, from gyms and museums to movie theaters and event spaces. The mayor says that after 3 weeks, we will then reevaluate the situation to see where we are with the virus in the city of Boston. So here's what will be impacted for at least 3 weeks, starting this past Wednesday, the 16th. What will close: movie theaters, museums, and aquariums, and gyms and indoor fitness centers, including those using alternative spaces. Now, one-on-one personal training sessions are still allowed. Indoor recreational and athletic facilities, centers for youth ages 18 and under, collegiate and professional sports, and indoor pools that require pre-registration and are limited to 1 person per swim, they're all exempt. Sightseeing and organized tours will be closed. Indoor historical spaces and sites as well. Indoor recreational venues with potential for low contact, such as driving ranges, bowling alleys, rock climbing facilities, and even batting cages will be closed. Also, indoor event spaces, including private party rooms, social clubs, meeting rooms, and ballrooms. Now, private social clubs may continue to operate, and if they serve food, they have to be consistent with the restaurant guidance. Indoor and outdoor gaming arcades that are associated with gaming devices also closed. Now, what can remain open, but with the new restrictions, indoor dining is allowed. However, a 90-minute limit on seatings will be strictly enforced, and bar seating is prohibited unless a restaurant receives approval from Boston Licensing Board. Pool tables, darts,
trivia games, and other activities that are fun are prohibited. The Fuhrer does not like fun. Office spaces are capped at 40% capacity. Non-athletic indoor instructional classes for people at least 18 years old must adhere to the 10-person capacity limit. Also, outdoor theaters and performance venues, along with outdoor event spaces used for celebrations and gatherings, and those that are not designated in Phase 4 can operate with a 25-person capacity limit. Also, television, motion picture, and streaming productions can continue. So these are the restrictions and how we will be operating for a 3-week period starting this past Wednesday, December 16th. For a complete list and more details, check for this post on OutWithJoe.com. The Boston.com article is posted there, and you can pull this information from that article. Again, look for this post. We are suspending the Music Minute with Tina Marie Billing for obvious reasons. But don't forget to support your local musicians. We do. For more dining and entertainment, click OutWithJoe.com and follow us on social media at OutWithJoe. Out With Joe has been brought to you by Nothing Bundt Cakes in White City Plaza in Shrewsbury, on Facebook at Nothing Bundt Cakes, Shrewsbury. Have you heard of the hottest new bakery around? I know you heard about it right here. My friend Al has opened Nothing Bundt Cake in the White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. Nothing Bundt Cake is a bakery chain and is locally owned and operated by my friend Al. They have bundt cakes ranging from bite-sized to tiered, plus platters, candles, and cards. For any occasion, function, or just to have around the house or office, stop by and check them out. Everything is baked from scratch and on site. Nothing beats a sweet surprise. And until you try one of Al's bundt cakes, you haven't tried a real bundt cake. Stop by and ask for Al. Tell him Joe told you to stop by. 98 Boston Turnpike, White City Plaza near Planet Fitness, Shrewsbury, and on Facebook as well, Nothing Bundt Cake Shrewsbury.
To join the conversation, call 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Now, here's your host, Joe Mangiacotti.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the first hour of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Hey, the first talk show of 2021 here in WCRN, kicking it off. Coming up at 7 o'clock, Senator Mike Moore for Politically Speaking, Business, Politics, and Lifestyle, Liquor Talking. Peter Blute tomorrow from 9 to 12. Jerry Doherty joins him at 9:30 every Sunday, so you want to be sure to check in on that. You can also check in with Jerry Doherty from 11 to 12 noon, Monday through Friday. And on Thursdays, he does Political Thursdays, and I'm happy to join him every Thursday as a political commentator for him on Making Money Last. It's always a fun day for me. I enjoy it tremendously. All right, resolutions and predictions. First, I did take a look at the article, Jazz. So did you. So Nancy Pelosi's house, the San Francisco house, was vandalized with the spray painting, and there's pictures. If you go up, I'll post it on our Facebook page, the link to it, so you can find it easy. Cancel rent. We want everything, but nobody's come and claimed the responsibility. The other thing is there's a severed pig head left in front of the garage. So I'm not sure if that's supposed to be symbolic of being pigs. I don't know. We want everything and cancel rent. I sometimes, when the left says things like this, the universal basic income, cancel rent, moratorium on evictions, all of that goes with it, and they want, including, and I started my tangent there on college tuition. But where do they think cancel rent? Then who's going to pay the rent? I mean, where does that happen? I mean, they think as a landlord, a guy who's been a landlord, it's a balancing act 99% of the time, folks, right? I mean, we have mortgages and expenses and taxes and insurance, and it takes years to get to a position where you can have enough equity into the property and such a low nut to cover that it actually makes you any money, much less make a living from it. And 1 month of rent not being paid can upset the entire apple cart here. And if you can't make the mortgage payment, then you start to run into fees and fines and yourself. And next thing you know, you're in a spiral and you may be going to lose the property. I do not understand how people can't understand that. We're not entitled to anything. We have to work for what you get, but We take care. I mean, you can't say that we don't have these safety nets, especially Massachusetts. Massachusetts, if you're going to be homeless, if you're going to be among the impoverished in one of the states in the union, Massachusetts, we have Mass Health, which ensures that everybody has at least the basic health coverage possible. If you get ill in Massachusetts, and I've been in that position, the state is there with all kinds of help, housing and counseling and medical coverage. It's there, but that's the society all pitching in through our taxes and doing this. But just to say, hey, nobody should have to pay rent. Well, who owns the property then? Do you really want to be in that society where the government owns everything and they take care of you from cradle to grave and they're responsible for everything? Because if they are, they get to tell you exactly how you lead your life and whether or not you get medical treatment and when you've lived long enough. Or they may decide you offer nothing to society and we really don't need you around anymore. Do you want to be in that world?
Well, it also leads us to, all right, so if the renters don't have to pay rent, then what? Do we say that then the landlords don't have to pay their mortgages?
That's what I'm saying.
But then, what are the banks going to do? Because that's one
They're
of
never
their
going to issue
main-
another mortgage.
Right, exactly. There's just no way to make that function in any world.
It's right. So this is, again, we're being told that communism is wonderful and it's great. We just haven't done it the right way. I know it failed in every other attempt on the planet, but they haven't done it. So they want to double down on it. So we have to do it right. It has to be full-bore communism all the way. But we got to get to the phones. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Rich has been waiting very patiently. Thank you, Richard, for that. Good morning. Welcome to 2021. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to both of you.
Thank you.
The thing I want to talk about, you're talking about smoking, and basically I was smoking till I was 25. Makes 49 years now I haven't smoked.
Wow.
And what happened is one day I was sitting at the table and I was making a puzzle, all right? And my son was sitting there watching me do the puzzle. And I took my pack of cigarettes, I lit up a cigarette. Well, my son was mesmerized. He was just fascinated with the smoke and everything, right? And I looked at him, looking at me in the cigarette, and I said, how the hell am I going to tell my son when he gets older that he can't smoke if he was watching me smoking? So that's jazz. That's how I quit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I don't have kids, but I am working towards kids, so I definitely don't want to smoke in front of my kids.
Yeah, that's a turning point that happened to me when I just saw how amazed he was.
Right.
At the smoke.
Right. And sons, I mean, they've watched us and they want to do everything we did. I can remember, I wanted a watch because my father wore a watch. I wanted a wallet, right? I got to that age, right? You start to see everything your dad do. Well, I want to put a watch on like Dad. I want a briefcase. I want to, and everything. So yeah, they're gonna emulate what they see. So
it was one of the reasons I
exactly.
started. My dad smoked.
Yeah.
As far as Nancy Pelosi, seriously, if that had been me, I would have cut off her electricity so that all her ice cream would have melted.
Yeah.
But the thing that I want to talk about basically is what's going on with the Republican Party. Right? And I'm just saying to myself, right? I mean, here's Trump. He's out there, and he's going to all these rallies for him. And matter of fact, he get a whole bunch of Republican, Congress people elected. And I'm just saying to myself, right? You get like Kavanaugh and Barrett and all them. It's like they all turn their back against them. And Mitch McConnell, right? He is the biggest. I don't know. I can't say it on the air, but anyways, he's married to a Chinese girl, all right, and her parents happen to own a Chinese shipping company, which I bet is probably owned by the Communist Party. And I'm looking at Ketch's Mitt Romney, Okay, I'm just saying to myself, how can they all turn against the guy who is all 100% behind them? Yeah. Can you comprehend that? Can you understand that?
Yeah, I agree. That look at there, and the president's been calling some of these jamokes out on that, saying, really, and now my question, because you started off saying I want to talk about the Republican Party, and I think that's a great question, Richard, because the question is, what is the Republican Party? Because did Trump remake it? I mean, he certainly changed it, and he did. He showed Republicans that you don't have to roll over. And then if somebody takes a swing at you, not only do you take that like a man, but you turn around and you counterpunch with an uppercut, and that you don't stand for it and you fight. And if there's anybody in politics that in our lifetime that always fought back, it's Trump, because whatever you put at him, you're getting back doublefold anyway. Yeah. And now, what is going to happen to the Republican Party? Because it's almost some of these jamokes up there, and the rhinos especially. They seemed more than willing and anxious for it to go back to the old Republican Party, the old status quo, and let them just be there. Let them just have their power and their fiefdom and go into that bubble of the Beltway and be part of that broken system. Meanwhile, he has exposed, meaning Donald Trump's presidency has exposed to us, and I said a little while ago, 2020 especially has been the year of the red pill here. And when we see, look at it, where is Bobulinski, right? I mean, this guy was on record. I mean, he came out with the email. I mean, this is evidence, folks. The whole Russian collusion was nothing but smoke and mirrors, not an ounce of it, when you had Schumer and the other one coming out saying, I seen it. And then you got Eric Swalwell being compromised by a Chinese spy and targeted. And now you got this other jamoke in Georgia, and you have to wonder what's going on with him. Because, again, Chinese, Ronald Reagan said it about the Soviet Union 40 years ago. Well, I'm saying it now. China is the evil empire. They have a plan. They've been working this plan, and they think in long term. And if you don't think that they have fangs all over the country going after these, I'm talking about city councilors and little town, councilors and representatives.
They're buying up our countries. I mean, they're buying up all our companies.
And they're placing
the ham and where they make bacon. Guess who owns that? China owns it. I tell my wife, I said, I don't ever want you buying Smithfield anything. This is what we got to do. We got to fight back one way or another. But I'm just saying to myself, enough is enough, Joe. All right?
I agree.
I mean, if we don't do something now, I mean, I'm never going to, even if Biden does get in, I don't think he will, because I think there's going to be national security. He's going to declare martial law, as far as I'm concerned. He has to. But I'll tell you what, Joe Biden can never get a national security clearance. How would you like to have him have the football in his hand? You think he'd ever pull press the button?
Okay, folks, if you don't understand that you're constantly being seeing and exposed to a sanitized, handled version of Joe Biden every time you see him, I mean, you have to just take a step back and watch and go back and look at video. And as soon as he starts to go off the rails, the handlers get him out of there, right? Yep. It's his people have decided what reporters get called on. And, Peter Ducey from Fox is never getting called on, never going to be called on. They script it all out, and they hold their breath every time he starts to talk on his own, because they know that he's not only is he just going to mix up words and mispronounce things and forget the name of people, but the danger here is when your mind starts to slip a little bit, he's going to say something that he's not supposed to. That's a secret that, he made that, was that a faux pas when he said Obama and him created the best fraud or, organization, voter fraud organization ever?
Yeah.
Did he mean to say, stop it?
He has dementia. Joe, he has dementia. Nobody wants to say it. The only ones that say it are talk shows who have conservatives on there. They talk about him. He has dementia. The guy is not old there. Can you? Matter of fact, he even called caramel there. He called her, the president-elect. Now, how bad is that?
He's made that mistake. The Harris Biden administration. He's put her first. He's talked about developing if him and Kamala disagree, he'll develop some kind of illness and move on. I mean, there's tons of faux pas and misspeaks.
All right, I'll let you go because I think you got Scott there.
Yeah, we got Scott. We got other calls. Thank you, Richard.
Okay,
and
take care.
One of the
Happy
first
New Year,
callers of
everybody.
2021, Richard. Right after Mark. There you go. All right, folks, 508-871-7000. Join the conversation. Don't forget our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388. You can text us in real time, and you can also email textjoeontheradio@gmail.com. It appears on the same screen in real time. Let me go to the phones. And Scott, thank you for waiting patiently. Welcome to 2021. You're one of the first callers to the first live show on WCRN of the new year.
Happy New Year, Mr. Maggiore. Did I pronounce it right?
Mangiacotti. Joe is fine.
I'm just going to call you Joe from now on.
Just call me Joe. People call me Joe, Stud Muffin. Any of those are good. That went right over Jazz's head. She didn't catch that.
I'm so disgusted with America. You were talking a moment ago, and I don't want to get off topic in a way. So you're talking about people can't get free rent and that, and it's communism and that. And I'm not saying to give them a free lunch, but look at the other side of the coin, Joe. You got a greedy Wall Street. You got trillions and trillions of dollars funneling into Wall Street, not billions, trillions and trillions, and trillions more to huge corporations. And Main Street is left holding the bag. Is that fair, Joe? Is that fair?
Okay, Scott, no, it's not fair. First of all, let me say this about Wall Street. Anyone who has broken the law, who has used insider trading, including members of Congress, should face the consequences of it. But the thing here is, in capitalism, we're about a level playing field. We're not supposed to say everybody has to have the same exact thing. We have to say that everybody has the same starting point. There's always going to be winners and losers. There's always going to be people who come out on top. There's the 80-20 rule out there, right? In that 80-20 rule, we apply it to sales forces. We apply it to carpet, for crying out loud, right? 20% of the carpet gets 80% of the footwear on it, where the other 80% of the carpet never gets anybody walking on it. Well, it's the same thing. And I've been in sales teams. I've run sales teams. I've owned businesses with sales teams. And sure enough, usually 20% of my sales force would create 80% of the sales. Well, you're going to always have this happen. But as long as everybody starts on the same level playing field, if you were to drop 10 people on a deserted island and come back in 6 months, 2 or 3 of the people are going to be running that island. And they're going to have all the coconuts, and everyone else is going to be climbing the trees to get the coconuts for them. That's how human nature. That's how things work. But we have to have rules and regulations in place to keep the playing field level. And when Wall Street companies manipulate the system and they use insider trading to make things unfair, we have to bring the hammer down on them. And when they get these exemptions, Scott, right? They get these golden handshakes. They get these bailouts. This is a term, and it wasn't a big term in 2020, but it's a term that we heard back towards the end of the Obama administration. And what was that? Too big to fail. Yeah. I'm sorry. That doesn't make sense to me. If you are so corrupt and you aren't running your shop correctly, you fail. Let the chips fall where they may. Why do the taxpayers have to give billions and trillions of dollars to these companies, and then these CEOs, Scott, they walk out with a $40 million out the door package on the taxpayers.
We're going to have a depression, Joe, and trillions for Wall Street, trillions for huge corporations. You know what? The American people, $600, $1,400, $2,000, whatever it is, it's a sick joke. Look, let's be honest. This is a national disgrace, and America's in the second Great Depression. All right. We are. We're not in a recession. People call it a depression. And they want to give us this phony vaccine. All right, vaccine. Let's call it that. If you want to take it, go take it. I'm not taking it. But what angers me, outrages me, is they want to give us a vaccine, but they don't want to give us money. But at the end of the day, greedy and evil Wall Street bankers, they profit handsomely from Americans' miseries. They get the cash, we get the shaft. And you've got a Federal Reserve that enables them, pumps in trillions of dollars. And I'm not just talking in abstract. I've got villains here. You've got Jamie Dimon, J.P. Morgan Chase. You got Lloyd Blankfein of Goldman Sachs. You got David Solomon of Goldman Sachs. Larry Fink of BlackRock. Steve Cohen, billionaire hedge fund manager. Paul Singer, billionaire corporator. Carl Icahn, billionaire corporator. And yes, Joe, call it what it is. And other international Jewish bankers that have destroyed the U.S. economy. And the American people are left with nothing. We're right.
All right, yeah. Well, Scott, yeah, but we don't have to assign. I mean, bankers is fine. Let's not start calling people names based on their religion or their race. But bankers are bankers, and Wall Street crooks are Wall Street crooks. We don't have to assign any of that to them. But the bottom line is the system's out of whack. We've seen the corruption. Like I don't want to keep going back to this, but 2020 is a red pill year, and what has happened in most of it is basically it's because of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump has helped expose just what's going on in all of this that has been exposed. Also, is the media is just so, and they don't understand it, right? They're stuck in, they really think, and they go on with serious faces and people who are supposed to be news people, and they're just dripping with their personal bias opinions, and that's how they're reporting the news. I go back to almost 30 years ago, starting this business, trying to get the first news job and breaking in the old timers, the teachers in broadcast school, and the old timers in the business, drilling it into my head when I was starting out. In the first news gig was how much you need to be neutral. You cannot let your personal feelings come out. And one of the best pieces of, and a lot of you listening are going to remember Chet Curtis, and he was married to the other anchor, Natalie Jacobson. Right, they were actually a married couple, Channel 5 for years. And I was a young guy. I was just starting my first job in radio, and I met Chet Curtis at the Jerry Lewis Telethon in Boston. And I was there working the phones and volunteering. And we got talking, and he gave me two pieces of advice. And one of them was because I had gone on and started doing the news for a little 1,000-watt station in Norfolk, Mass. And I used a name, J-Man, just instead of Mangiacotti. I thought it was too long and ethnic and people couldn't pronounce it. And he told me, don't do that. Use your real name, because his name isn't Chet Curtis. It's a very long Polish name. I don't remember what it was. But he said, one day you'll wake up and that's who you are and you can't go back. So use your real name. You can do that now. You couldn't do that when I started out. So that was on a Saturday. I went back to the station Monday morning, did the morning news as Joe Mangiacotti, and never changed it, never used a different name on the air after that. The other advice he gave me when I told him I wanted to do news and talk, and he said, look, if you want to do news, be independent. Now, then we didn't have an independent party, right? It was called, we call it unenrolled now. But back then, there was no party of independent, so he said stay what would be equivalent of unenrolled. In other words, don't be a registered, be a voter, just don't have any party affiliation, because you never want anybody to be able to look up your voter registration and say, you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, you're whatever. So your news is biased that way. And he said no one should ever be able to tell what your party affiliation is by how you deliver the news. Those are the two pieces of advice that Chet Curtis gave me 34 years ago. And I've taken it to heart and lived by that. And I watch news today, Scott, and I can tell you in 10 seconds where a newscaster is politically, and that should not be able to be that shouldn't happen. You shouldn't be able to do that.
All the news we get today is all scooped. It's all scooped. It's I don't even watch the news anymore. It's a joke. The New York Times, Michael Bloomberg, all of these America's news outlets, I'm going to respect what you said, Mr. Mangiacotti, a minute ago. It's the same people that control the bankers. You know what I'm saying? The same people that control Wall Street. That's who controls your news. That's where it was. So if you want to know what's going on, don't listen to the
Well,
news.
Scott, if we start looking at, who owns, and I agree with you, if you look at who owns CBS, who owns CNN, who owns Disney, and you start seeing such this incestual ownership going on. Not only that, if we start to take a look at the news, the names of these who are in front of the camera and behind the camera, and then you start looking at who they're married to. And there's a lot of, pillow talk and bedfellows because this one's wife is in this administration or this one's husband is part of that administration. And you see this all happening. And then you realize that it's very difficult for a lot of these people to actually ask those tough questions that need to be asked to Joe Biden, and Joe Biden aren't going to be asked those tough questions about his involvement. And we've got the evidence. I mean, unlike the Russian collusion hoax, I'm telling you, there are mountains and mountains of evidence with what went on with the Biden family. I'm not even focusing on Hunter. Hunter's just a cog in the little wheel here, or in the big machinery. It is, Bubalinsky has it. And that laptop has it all, and no one's asking their questions, and no one's doing their job. Thank you very much for the call, Scott. But we're coming up to 7:00. We'll be joined by Senator Mike Moore in hour 2 at 7:00 for Politically Speaking, the first Politically Speaking show of 2021 here on AM 830 WCRN, AM 730 WACE, live streaming on the TuneIn app. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. To join the conversation, that's 508-871-7000.
WACE Chicopee and WCRN Worcester.
7:00. Hey, folks, Joe Mangiacotti from the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you, talk radio is the immune system to the partisan, bias, political rhetoric attacking us on a daily basis. Get inoculated. The Joe Mangiacotti Show is your vaccine. Join me weekend mornings, 6 to 8.
Golden Group Roofing is a community brand. From our master elite roofers and industry partners to our clients, every single person represents the Golden Group standard. We strive every day to make your home's needs a priority because Golden Group invests in you and your communities. With unbeatable craftsmanship, customer satisfaction, reasonable pricing, Golden Group Roofing stands above the rest. Having been awarded GAF Master Elite Contractor, Certainty Select Shingle Master, and GAF Energy Certified Solar, Golden Group Roofing is 100% worthy of your investment. Experience the Golden Group difference, where hands protect what matters most. Visit us at goldengrouproofing.com or call us at 508-873-1884. 508-873-1884.
I want to tell you what Cantiani Insurance has been able to do for me and Teddy. We stopped in to see Paul Sr. and the great staff at 318 Plantation Street. They've been handling my car and business insurance for years. Teddy was making his way around the office, and they let me know. They now offer pet insurance. For a fraction of what one visit to the vet was for Teddy, they could cover him for a whole year. I know you treat your furry family members like any other family member, and as well as I do Teddy. The professional staff at Cantiani's has been providing courteous service for over 40 years with integrity and personalized service, making sure that your insurance actually protects you and your family. With 2 locations, the 318 Plantation Street in Worcester and East Douglas Insurance Agency, located at 306 Main Street in Douglas. For home, auto, business insurance, and now pet insurance, click CantianiAgency.com or call 508-791-2088. 508-791-2088.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger-looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
All right, folks, welcome to Politically Speaking. It's 7 o'clock or 7:03 on the first Politically Speaking of 2021. Happy New Year to everybody. And 2020 has been a particularly strange year, and we are going to be joined right now by Senator Mike Moore, co-host here of Politically Speaking. Senator, good morning, and welcome to 2021.
Good morning, Joe. Thank you. Welcome to 2021. Hope it's going to be a better year than our last year.
Well, we all hope so. I don't know if you were listening earlier, but I was saying that 2020 was kind of the red pill year, right? A lot of reality has sunk into us. A lot of things got exposed to us, and it's just been a year like no other in my lifetime. And I'm looking at 2021, and I think we're going to have some residual of 2020 into 2021. We can't help that. But let's talk a little bit about the past year here and what has been going on up at Beacon Hill. And folks, so the first Saturday of every month, at 7 o'clock we do Politically Speaking with Senator Mike Moore. He is a sitting senator, and again, what's the name of the Senate seat that you occupy?
The 2nd Worcester.
Oh, that's it. Just the 2nd Worcester. Usually these names have the 2nd Worcester, and then they have like 9 towns they name off, right?
Oh, okay. Well, no. Those are the towns I represent. So it's the 2nd Worcester District. I represent the towns of Leicester, Auburn, Millbury, Grafton, Shrewsbury, Upton, 2 precincts in Northridge, and about 45% of the city of Worcester.
There you go. Let's. I don't know where you want to start here with, but maybe should we look back at the legislative, the 2020 legislative successes? Maybe that's the way we should go at it, because in spite of all of the negative and stuff going on, you yourself, as well as the state legislature, were able to get some good things done, and let's not let that get lost in all of the noise and confusion, right?
No, there really was a lot that we accomplished, especially where we had to quickly adapt to a whole new mode of operating in the state Senate. We didn't really have the technology to being able to shift to the remote operating like other businesses had. We had to learn how to do everything through Zoom meetings and other types of operation. We had to have public hearings online through virtual meetings. We had legislative sessions through meetings, the online meetings, and it took a while for us to adapt to it. But
Beacon Hill, right, Senator? I mean, part of the state legislature is the Golden Dome, Beacon Hill, right? The State House, walking through those halls and the big wooden doors and the beautiful chambers and being done in person, right? And that's tradition. And did 2020 and the pandemic shook that up a little bit, right? Because you guys had to get out of that mode. I mean, for a 300 years, this is how you did things, face to face, in the chambers, in the House, and the parliamentary procedures. And now, on a dime, you're being told you can't be in the same room, and you can't have these, discussions where people are yelling and spittle's coming out of their mouth. Now you've got to, you know what I'm saying? You got to switch gears. You got to learn how to do Zoom in internet, and we've got to decide what can be done remotely, and what about all those. I mean, there are so many rules, right, and laws that things have to be signed and they have to be witnessed, and how you run a meeting. How do it's different. So you had to learn, whereas I think some businesses may have already dabbled into that just because that's the commercial, that's how business works. If it was more efficient and cost effective to have a conference meeting, right? A conference call was very common in the private sector, but you guys, meaning the state legislatures as well as our federal government, were forced into this. And that had to be a change. That had to be a very big learning curve for everybody on all the state legislators.
No, it was. But I don't know, Joe, I don't know if the private sector really was as prepared for it also.
A lot of these businesses got forced into having remote workers, which they never would have done on their own accord. Right, it was an argument in the private sector for many years, and you couldn't convince them to do that. But they've discovered that productivity not only was the same, Senator, but many times productivity went up. And now you got private sector saying maybe we don't have to all come back to brick and mortar.
Well, we've had some reports indicating that initially the work product went up. Now there's been some, looking back, and now they're wondering if it actually did increase or if they've seen a little reduction in it. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not this new normal will continue. I mean, hopefully it will. I think it's better for the employee. I think it's better for hopefully it's better for the company. And as far as the state having to invest resources, it's helped us in our fight against climate change, CO2 emissions, keeping those down. The need that we had for certain expansion of different roadways, the infrastructure, it's taken some of the burden off us having to do some of the work that we thought we had to do immediately, because it's gotten the cars off the road.
It's funny you say that because, I mean, do you remember a few months ago, right? We, at the beginning of all this, when all of a sudden the driving, right, we were all initially said, okay, everybody just stay in your homes for a couple of weeks, no work, no nothing. Well, that was a unforeseen thing. We weren't prepared for that. And what happened? There was that huge gas glut. All of a sudden, instead of, millions of barrels a day, right, we dropped the consumption, and we had ships loaded with crude oil that not only couldn't sell it, but were being paid to store it. And we were down to $18 a barrel at one. I mean, it was just this. What that showed us is what would happen if we just one day a week we all didn't drive. What would that do to CO2 and the consumption of oil and natural resources? So it demonstrated, right, a lot to us, didn't it? I mean, and we saw the CO2. We saw an effect in the environment. We saw, I remember, checking out and seeing the post of you could see Mount Fuji because finally the smog cleared, and you were able to see things that you couldn't see, and then the pictures from the space station, and that was pretty amazing. So if you didn't understand what gas and oil was doing to our environment, that certainly was very visual for those of us who are visual learners.
I think it definitely made people realize that the argument that has the debate that's been going on for years, do we impact use of fossil fuel and CO2 emissions? Do we impact the environment and have an impact on climate change? I think this really justified, but really showed that we do have an impact. because there's other things you're saying. Air quality improved, and not just here in the United States, across the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, we're talking to Senator Mike Moore. This is Politically Speaking. He joins us the first Saturday of every month at 7 o'clock. It's your opportunity to speak with the Senator by calling in to 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000, and being able to ask him a question about what's going on Beacon Hill, what has happened on Beacon Hill, and where things are going. Let me ask you about a couple of the things that did happen, and I know that you were very proud of the Nikki's Law because you had a lot to do with that. And why don't you first of all cap for everybody what Nikki's Law was or is, and what does that do, and why was it such an important law to get through for you?
Well, first I'd like to thank the Chan family from Auburn. They're actually the ones that came to me, and they had a son who had been abused, and it really showed the need that we have an industry where people who have a developmental disability or children, there was no pre-screening or way to determine if someone had a worker had been previously charged, or I shouldn't say charged, but previously found to have abused someone. So what this law does, it creates a database where if you've got an individual, an employee, who is applying for a position at a provider company, so that would be a company that provides services for people who have a developmental disability, before they hire the person, they will have to run this person's name through a database to make sure, or I shouldn't say database, a registry, that will make sure that the person has not been found to have abused someone with a developmental disability. Previously, what we've had is individuals who have been victimized. Families don't always want to come forward. If they come forward, you have to warn the person, their loved one now has to testify, and depending on what that disability is, it may be very hard for the person to identify or make an oral statement, audible statement that's going to be able to explain what was done to them. And
which is what makes them easy prey in the first place sometimes, Senator, doesn't it? Yep. I mean, that's the whole problem there.
Yeah.
Is they're easy prey. And we need to protect them.
Yeah. And also, it can be just like any victim of a crime. When they come out, or I know no topic will come up is sexual assault. Just like when they come forward, oftentimes the victim, their name is put in the paper, their name is publicized. Excuse me, I was going to get a sneeze going. Their name is put in the paper, and they have to go through. No one wants to see their loved one. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. No one wants to see their loved one in the newspaper or their face plastered all over the media. So instead of going forward with a criminal trial, they will sometimes have it handled administratively. The problem we were having is it was a lot of times the companies would come to a resolution with the person where they would terminate them. But there's really and then the person would be fired. The person who victimized the individual, they would be fired, and then there's no record of it. That person would then move on to another company. Excuse me. Move on to another company who's done a background. But on a background check, as you know, a criminal background check only shows someone who's been criminally charged or convicted. So there's this type of action by the company to just terminate the person isn't picked up, and the person can go from one company to another company to another company, and we end up victimizing more people. So we created a registry with the passage of this, and it's really just to make sure that there's a way that these individuals who are intent on doing this are not going to be able to bounce around from one company to another company, victimizing people.
Right. Because so often we would hear about some tragic thing happening, and then when they dug into the person, you found out that they've held multiple jobs at similar type of organizations, and they either left under questionable circumstances or they didn't prove it. Like all of a sudden you're saying, well, how did they get that job? So I mean, this is great that finally something's in place for this, or that you find out that somebody's working with children or with disabled people who left another job, and you say, well, how did they get that job? But now there's actually a system in place, and it's referred to, and it's called Nikki's Law. Is that the official name? Is that what it's called, or is there a?
Yes, no, that's the name. It was after their son who was victimized, and no, I give the family courage. Thanks for coming forward and having the courage to talk about this. And
was
again,
Nikki? Was it a physical abuse? Was it a sexual abuse? A combination, or what was the or was it just simply cruelly treated?
It was some physical abuse.
That's awful.
So, and many times this goes on. I guess further talks about how you've got someone who, in defense of some, we have some very good workers out there who can accidentally bruise people that they're taking care of in the handling and moving of them. So it's another situation where we had to make sure that when we were doing this, that we had a due process in place so that the employee who was being charged had their due process, and they can come forward and make sure that they weren't improperly placed on this list in barred from employment at another entity.
Sure. Right.
So
there's always got to be the protections for the legitimate worker. There's got to be an allowance for legitimate accidents or just normal things that can happen in the course of care.
I just want to jump in on this for one second. I am a home health aide. I'm someone who does do this for a living. And I want to say that this law is huge for us, because those of us who are there every day doing work like this and having to go into people's homes and actually physically lift them, to either put them on the toilet or, shower them, whatever the case may be, however limited or, whatever their mobility or their speech is, having something like this is huge, because you will every once in a while have an accident where someone slips a little bit and you might bruise them. But
Have you ever used the Hoyer lift?
So I've never actually gotten the pleasure of having a Hoyer lift.
Oh.
I've always had to do everybody myself.
Okay. Because I've done adult foster care for DMR, and so I've had clients live with me, and we've even I had a Hoyer lift in my house at one time, because the client got to the point where initially when they came to stay with me, I could get them from the wheelchair into the shower and all that. But it comes to, but they slip themselves, and sometimes they try to do things on their own. And I've had that situation, which if you didn't know what went on, you could look at me and go, "What did you do to this old man?" Yeah, you
exactly. But on the opposite side, we also have people that completely take advantage of someone. And I mean, I know I've worked for someone who had swindled an old woman out of her house and her car. And
does the Nikki's Law cover that? Because that's be
huge. The family that's left behind is.
And I've heard the cases of care workers coming into the homes. And Senator, I don't know, was this even addressed, that all of a sudden this care worker has credit cards issued to their client's name that they're using, and they're paying. I mean, they're running it. Eventually they run it so much they can't cover it anymore, and that's when it kind of comes to light. But I've even heard of through, again, working with the agencies that administer this, people have financed cars under the names of people in their care. And a lot of these people, especially if they're developmentally disabled, they have great credit because they've never screwed it up, right? They've never used it, right? So you get this, you learn the name, the date of birth, the Social Security number. You're there to get mail, and all of a sudden they've got credit cards and cars financed to these people's names. And does this bill address any of that?
It would. We were really concentrating more on the physical type of abuse. I guess I'll have to go back and look at the language on that.
Because maybe that's something that if it's not, you know, can be amended, or even another bill just to address that. I mean, there are already laws in place for committing identity theft, and we already have those laws. But like so many other things, I think if you take advantage of somebody like that for that way, that should be even a stiffer bill, because anytime you take advantage of a disabled person or less access to resources than everyone else has, I think that should be a stiffer penalty for that, Senator. No?
It definitely should. I mean, and this is one of the roles government should be here for. We need to be there for the people who can't protect themselves. That's one of the main things government should be providing a service for. These individuals who may have a handicap or a disability. So I'll have to go back and look at the financial aspect of it. But
the other bill that was, I think, a great, and you did a lot of work on, was the campus sexual assault bill.
Yeah, that's Nikki's law. It took us almost 5 years to get passed.
Yikes.
The campus sexual assault bill we've been working on that roughly about the same amount of time.
Senator, you need a version of warp speed for these bills, right? Can't you do that?
Listen, the problem is you get one, we have the three branches of government and one branch will pass it. And both Nikki's law and the campus sexual assault bill, the Senate's actually passed 3 times now. And right now it's sitting in the House. We've passed it through the Senate. Again, 3 different sessions. It's sitting in the House right now. And the Speaker, DeLeo, the former Speaker, I should say, back in September announced that he thought it was publicly that it was time that we finally passed this. So we're hoping between now and January 5th, when the session ends, that we'll finally be able to get this passed into law also.
What are some of the highlights of that bill, Senator?
Well, the highlights of this bill, basically what it does, to me, it puts some power back in the victim's hands, and we actually even add some due process protections for the accused. The bill mandates certain services that the college or university would have to provide. And when I say put some power back in the victim's hands, as we've seen so many cases, when a victim comes forward of a sexual assault, again, their name's in the paper, and they become the target of attack. So what it does is it deters the victim from coming forward. And a lot of these cases that they end up coming forward in these college sexual assault cases are months to years after they've occurred. And we're hoping to find out through this, because we increase reporting, the mandated reporting on the schools, that maybe there are more cases that are being brought that are being handled administratively. Basically, what happened with this bill was, and I was chairing the Committee on Higher Education, we were hearing a bill dealing with the disciplinary process for colleges and universities, and they started talking about sexual assault and different types of assault cases that were going through this administrative process. And of course, the question came, why aren't the police being notified? Well, it turns out that the schools can't go forward and notify the police unless the victim allows them to or instructs them to. And there was some grave concern that victims were not being advised of all of their rights. So what this does, it mandates that every school would have to hire a confidential advisor, resource advisor, where if you're a victim or an accused, if you something happens, you call this person will advise you on what your rights are.
So they know all their options available to them, whether or not they want to leave it.
Not there to counsel.
Because I would think that these universities and colleges, Senator, often would like it handled in-house and administratively, and they certainly do not want to all of a sudden be known as the rape school, or that there are problems there, and that you have 4, 5, and 7 parked outside the administration building, and you're on the 6 o'clock news and all of that, and it's self-interest. It's preserving the school's reputation at the expense of the victim.
It is, and that was the issue that we were trying to address. Now, in defense of the schools, the Title IX prohibited the schools from notifying law enforcement unless the victim allowed them to or approved them to. Our concern was that the victim was not being advised of what their rights were or other options were.
Right.
So what this confidential advisor will do is advise the person, you have the right to go to the police. If you go to the police, this is what will happen. You have the right to notify the school. Whoever calls this person, it has to be confidential.
So they were often victimized twice, because if they didn't have all of the legal options open to them and they were educated on it, they very well were being taken advantage of again. But, Senator, we have to take the bottom of the hour break. So we will do that on Politically Speaking with Senator Mike Moore. And when we come back on the other side, Senator, I want some resolutions and some winners and losers of 2020. So I'll give you a minute to think about that. When we come back on the other side, I'm Politically Speaking with Senator Mike Moore. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Lines are open and available. Stick with us. We'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to Handle and Change. From the Cantiani Insurance Studios, I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and Gary Gay of One Worcester Homes joins us this week. The purchase or sale of your home or investment property could be one of the largest challenges you have, and Gary can help you handle those challenges. Good morning, Gary.
Hi, good morning, Joe.
Well, welcome back here to Handle and Change as we're sliding right along. The years move so quickly.
It's wonderful to be here, and I am shocked in how fast, given everything going on this year, how fast it went by.
Maybe that's why it seems like it's gone by so fast. But let me get into this because I was wondering about condos and living in condos. And see, as a condo dweller myself, I kind of know some of the reasons that I am now living in a condo after living in homes and houses of various types over the years. And I thought I'd ask you to talk to us about some of the advantages and maybe even some of the drawbacks of living in a condominium versus freestanding homes.
I have quite a few clients lately who have been really considering or have moved forward with buying condos versus buying single-family homes. There are a lot of pros and cons to buying a condo. Most, obviously, Joe, you probably know about.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the reasons that I'm in a condo are probably some of the same reasons that some of your clients have opted that route. You know, for me, a lot of it had to do with a single person with a busy life. A lot of it had to do with not dealing with shoveling driveways and mowing lawn, keeping gardens, or just a lot of the normal, and I'm not even talking about the big things that come up with a house, just the normal maintenance of a home. It's an investment in your time as well. And I found that a condo, I don't have any of that. I've got a garage. I don't have to shovel out. I don't have to clean off my car. I don't have to clean the walkway. I don't have to worry about the roof. There's a lot of daily maintenance stuff that is taken off of my plate.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. There's a lot of clients of mine who, even young families who are going the route of condos, just to be able to give themselves more of a carefree lifestyle, if you want to call it that. Give them more time, spend on the things that matter and not necessarily on maintaining your home. Spend time with family, with pet, working, building your equity. There's a lot of things that condo offers in terms of maintenance free.
I also found that if you like to travel a lot, a condo, it's not as problematic a freestanding home. If you go away for a month, it's clear that nobody's living in your house and it's just sitting there. And you may have security systems, all that, but I think it's a target. If you're in a condominium with many units and you're not there for a month, barely noticeable to most people that you're even gone.
Yeah, and some of my clients have even bought condos in popular vacation areas. I have some clients who have condos in Florida that they rent out part of the year, and they go down and live there for 4 or 6 months, which is very common for people in New England.
Yeah, we call them snowbirds, right?
Yep, exactly.
So there's a lot of advantages to that. In a condo, you still have to deal with, of course, your hot water heater goes or your garbage disposal goes. Your insurance is a little different, right? You got to make sure that you have your insurance. There's the master insurance, right, Gary, that deals with the building itself, and you need to know what that says. And I think part of that might be looking at the master insurance policy as well as the rules and regulations going into a condo, because they vary from association to association, don't they?
Yeah, they can vary greatly between associations, and a lot of those variations depend on what type of condo it is, and if it's what kind of amenities they offer. The other things you really want to consider, if you have animal, you want to make sure that your condo association doesn't have a ban against certain types of animals.
Yeah. And I know some condominium associations will decide that you can have a dog under so many pounds, right? They don't want you to have a 110-pound shepherd, but a 15-pound Shih Tzu is fine. In my case with Teddy, as most people know, he has that very special license, which means he's exempt from any of those rules. But if you don't have that special license for your animal, because they're not a service animal, you really have to know whether they're even allowed to be in the building.
Yeah, that's a big thing for people, especially during the last 6 months or so. I've seen a lot of homeowners and a lot of families acquiring pets. Me being one of them. We got a dog for my daughter in February, right before everything kind of went crazy. It was quite the surprise to be locked in with it for the next 6 months or so.
I'm sure the dog loved it.
Oh yeah, the dog loved it and is now spoiled.
Hey Gary, we're running out of time for this, but if people want to talk to you about condo living and the pros and cons of it, they can just give you a call and do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to talk to anyone. First-time buyers, investors, downsizers. Condos are a big attraction for a lot of people right now.
Absolutely. All right, Gary, thanks for stopping by, man.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
And thank you for joining us for Handling Change from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. Join us each week at 7:30 on Saturday mornings as we give you the tools to handle the changes in your life. Visit us at handlingchange.info, and you can find Gary and all the fantastic realtors at One Worcester Homes on Facebook at One Worcester Homes, or give them an email at oneworcesterhomes@gmail.com, or call anytime directly to Gary at 413-427-5506. For Gary, I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
To join the conversation, call 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Now, here's your host, Joe Mangiacotti.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the second hour. Actually, our lead-in didn't catch up. This is actually Politically Speaking with Senator Mike Moore, the first Saturday of every month. And here we are, the first Saturday, right, January 2nd, 2021. Where did 19 come from? 2021. We have gotten through one of the strangest years in most of our lifetime here, 2020, the red pill year as far as I'm concerned. On the phone with us is Senator. I didn't realize you're going to go by phone. Did you just decide I'm not getting up that early for the first Saturday?
I was just saying that I didn't know it was supposed to snow last night, and then I looked at the weather and talked about snow turning to rain, and I was like, I'm not going to go drive down there in the icy weather.
I got to say, I took, obviously, a day like this, I take the four-wheel drive, and I took the truck in today, and I did put it in four-wheel drive because it was, at 4 o'clock this morning, it was slippery. It was slippery. It took me longer because I had to drive a little more cautiously and slower. So it wasn't the best. What about you, Jazz? Because you have the all-wheel drive Subaru thing, don't you?
Yeah, I have an Outback. So I was coming from Lancaster. The roads over in Lancaster, Bolton were super slushy, gross.
Right.
But as soon as I got on 495, it was clear.
It would be fine, yeah. Yeah. See, Worcester, right, the city of hills. We've got
Yep.
It's not
Seven Hills.
7 Hills. That's right. And it's not going up. You put in 4-wheel drive, you're fine. It's coming down these steep hills and hoping that you're going to stop at the bottom. That's where I always get nervous on those. But nonetheless, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's on the phone with the Senator Mike Moore. This is Politically Speaking, the first Saturday of every month we do this. It's your opportunity to talk with the sitting senator and for him to let us know what's going up on Beacon Hill. And before we continue on with it, I wanted to ask you, do you have, first of all, any New Year's resolutions? Do you bother with those? Do you have any? Or are you giving yourself a pass for 2020 into 21?
I really hadn't thought about a resolution for this year. I guess it would really just be making sure that I'm going to say, I guess, making sure that whatever I can be there for someone this year, I think
continue to be accessible and open to the
I'm thinking
constituency.
I'm thinking more for some different organizations that I've worked with.
Okay.
There's like Hotel Grace in Worcester. I think right now that because of the pandemic, there's so many different organizations or different causes that need assistance. I think it's just trying to pay more attention. I think out of overall, I try to pay attention to different causes or different efforts, but I think just trying to pay attention to more people who might need help.
Right.
I think it's right now, it's only going to get a little worse. So
right.
I'm trying to be there for people when I can be.
Absolutely. What about any predictions for 2021?
I'm hoping 2021 continues in a positive direction, that we start getting over all the challenges that we faced in 2020. I'm hoping that the vaccine gets out, that people can start accessing that. I'm hoping the results of the election I'm a little concerned about what's going to go on as we get closer to the transition and how both sides handle it. I'm just hoping that we remember that it's an election, that there's another one in 4 years if you're not happy with the results of this.
And we've got midterms, and the peaceful transfer of power is the hallmark of our democracy. And,
I do have some concerns about that. I'm not going to lie. I do have concerns that I think it's the 6 that the Electoral College has voted on in Congress, and I know they're already talking about protests. And I believe everyone has the right to protest, but I don't think violence has to go with that. So,
no, well, it doesn't always. Violence. I mean, if you would think that protests and violence went hand in hand if you were to take a snapshot of 2020, but they don't, folks. Right? I mean, let's look to some of the most powerful protests organizers and protests that there were, like Martin Luther King. I mean, that's how you protest. He changed the world, and he did it. As a matter of fact, the only violence connected with him was perpetrated on him, and that's that you can change through peaceful protest, and you do not have to set buildings on fire or loot. Stealing a TV has nothing to do with your peaceful protest.
And it takes away from the message.
Exactly.
It takes away from the cause.
Exactly. You diminish it because now you've lost all that credibility, right? These peaceful protesters would be out there all day, and it seemed like when the sun went down, it got darker, bad actors came on the scene. And all of that positive messaging that was done all day, Senator, gets mixed up and confused and lost in the bad actors' behavior. And that is a crime. That is a bad part of it. What about? I'm sorry, guys.
I was going to say, it really does, because you had individuals out there protesting, and then just as you said, there were bad actors who weren't even part of the protest that took advantage of it, and then the whole discussion started evolving around, well, is it this group or is it this group? And the message that they were trying to get out got lost.
Absolutely.
So, you're going to say?
I was going to ask you about predictions. Do you have any predictions for 2021?
No, I really don't. I'm just hoping. If we went back to last January and you would ask me all the predictions, everything would have been positive. And then 2 months later, we had the shutdown. So I'm just hoping. I'm really hoping that things continue to move forward in a positive vein. That the vaccine gets out, we can see some sort of normalcy back in our lives, and people can go back to having some sort of quality of life.
Agreed. Let's talk about that on the vaccine as far as Massachusetts is concerned, because on December 18th, healthcare workers across the state began to receive the first doses of the Pfizer vaccine.
Yes.
And Moderna is being added, right? Or was added, wasn't it? What, on the 21st?
Yeah, we have Pfizer. It was the first one, then Moderna. And I think AstraZeneca is actually coming up soon. They're going to be looking for an approval. As far as I know, we've issued in Massachusetts. There's been about 78,000 vaccines that have been administered. It's far short of, I think, what we all thought. Federally, we were hearing that 20 million people were going to be vaccinated. I think first we heard numbers much higher. Then the final number was 20 million, and I don't think we've even come close to that number.
Well, what is the distribution plan for Massachusetts? Is it are there multiple phases, and just explain to the listeners, what's the distribution plan? Who's getting it? What's considered high risk? When are 65 and older getting it? How is the state going to handle this?
Well, the first phase of distribution will go until February. The second phase will prioritize getting the vaccine out. Well, the first phase is going to the essential workers, so basically our first responders, so in our healthcare. So they'll be getting the first shots, and also I should say the long-term care facilities be getting it. As you know, there's been a lot of concern about the residents in some of these long-term care facilities who have been coming down with this at a high rate.
Yeah, Holyoke. Holyoke is just a national story.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you're right, locally and nationally. Once the virus gets in there, it just spreads rapidly. So that's the first phase. The second phase of the vaccine will go to anyone who's high risk, those age 65 and older. The second phase will also include early education and K-12 workers. And that, I think, is also important. Because, if we're looking to get people back to work,
right,
making sure that they have the means of having some sort of child care. Yeah. So if we want to get the economy up and going, you have to make sure that there's a safe place for them to bring their children. Also in the second phase will be, which I think I'm very happy that we were able to get them in the second phase. I was actually hoping they were going to get the first phase, but some of our grocery workers, the grocery stores, you think about those workers who are behind that cash register,
stocking the shelves, right? Handling that money, right? Face to face with customers. I have looked to the grocery workers throughout the year or throughout the pandemic, Senator, many times to say, nobody's talking about these. I go to the store once or twice a week and I see the same faces, and they have been there, working the cash register, stocking the shelves, right? Greeting me, saying, "Hey, Joe, hey, Teddy," right? When we walk in. Yep. And I'm like, well, they have their masks on, they have gloves, they have sanitizer. Obviously, it's working. Otherwise, wouldn't they all be in the hospital, right? Of course, a lot of them are younger, but I did notice that. I bumped into this one lady who works at the Price Chopper near my home, and I hadn't seen her, and it didn't occur to me till I saw her in one day. But she was in there as a customer, and of course, she came over to say hi to Teddy and everything, and she retired. When I didn't realize it, and she said no. She's an older woman. She's been there for like 30 years, right? And when this all broken down, she just took a retirement. She said, at her age, in her condition, she's like, she felt it was just too dangerous. It was too much for her to go into the grocery store and work. And she was like a front end manager person, like so she's, handling a lot of things. And then it made me start to think, well, how many people like her bowed out of work because of their age? And they did it prematurely. Maybe they would have worked another year or two or a few. So this probably has caused a lot of people to stop working earlier than they anticipated doing so. And those are things that we have that I think in time we can go back and try to figure out, but it's so much data going on right now, right? I mean,
I think like you just said, I think if the people stocking the shelves, the grocery workers, those are the ones that people, I don't want to say forget about, but
overlook.
They just don't realize. Yeah, they overlook. They just, they go in every day, and you just, there's the same face, the same kids, the same people that are there. And just right from the start of the pandemic, they worked right through it. And I think it's important that we don't forget them. So also in the phase 2, we have the utility workers, food and agriculture workers, public works.
Where do the police and fire and the first responders fall into the phase? I mean, police and fire have no choice, right? They have to respond. They always do. Yep. That's their job. They run towards the fire. They run towards the danger when the rest of us are running away from it. So are they in phase 1, or are they considered essential?
They're in phase 1.
Okay.
They have phase 1. Police, fire, and healthcare workers and long-term care facilities. They're all in phase 1. Phase 3 would be basically the rest of us. And just so we get this out there, I know we see a lot of people on TV, elected officials on TV.
Wait a minute. Senator, where's talk show hosts? Shouldn't we be up there? We're such essential workers. Shouldn't we be the first? Come on.
I have my mask on right now as we're talking. So, it's just, and I know we see a lot of people on elected officials on TV getting shots, and I think that's just to try to put people's fears at ease. But elected officials are not getting, we are not being prioritized above everyone else in the public. So we will fall in as we should be in the final phase. And I think, as you know, I had the COVID in the early first 2 weeks of November. So that would move me to the end anyways, where I've had it and I've got the antibodies.
Right.
So
your body already should have the white blood cells, the plasma to fight it. It's almost as if you've got a natural vaccine. Your body already has learned to fight it.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that I'll have the antibodies until it's time I get the vaccine. Actually, one thing I'm doing in the next 2 weeks is I am going to be donating my plasma. So that's for that convalescent plasma.
Delve into that for a second and explain what that is and why that's a good thing and an important thing.
Well, you go in, and I think they said it's going to take at least an hour and 2 hours. And they, rather than giving blood, you'll go to the American Red Cross, and I'm not even that familiar with it. However, they remove the plasma. I'm assuming it's almost the same way as they remove blood, but they're going to be taking the plasma from my body. Then they utilize that and process it in a way that they can treat people who have COVID with it. So, and it's that, and I didn't think about it at that time. Again, because when I called up, so I was looking to try to get in before the end of this year.
Sure.
Now it's going to be 2 months later, and I should be it's a way too I can verify my antibody level too.
Got it.
So which was a benefit. Joe, one thing I wanted to mention is you had sent me a text about a question.
Oh yeah, it came in on our text line.
Yeah. So there's a lot of confusion about this.
Let's read it so the people Please ask Mr. Moore if this law will eventually apply to protecting preborn and terminating, in quotes, employees who have victimized the innocent that have no voice. Using his own words, is it possible to justify veto override of Roe Act 1209/House 3320 is the text that got sent into the show.
Yeah, people have there's a misunderstanding about the intent of this legislation, and obviously there's some people who have misquoted what the intent of it is, and then there's some who have taken it and run wild with their spin on this. But the goal of this Roe Act, one, was to ensure that women do have the right of health care, and they have the right to determine how they will receive health care.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to abortion services, this does not change the current law that you cannot have an abortion after the first trimester unless it's a danger to the woman or the mother's life. And what is being added to this is if you can show, if there's a diagnosis of a fatal fetal anomaly. So basically what it is if you've got a diagnosis from a physician that the child is going to die upon birth, this allows the mother to make the decision whether she is going to go through that childbirth and then watch her child die, or be able to have that performed while it's still in the womb. Mm-hmm. So this does not give a woman the right to, if it's 6 months or 7 months into the pregnancy, or even 2 or 3 weeks before it, just decide, okay, I don't want to have a child anymore. They don't have the right at that point, or to terminate, or if they find out that there could be a genetic defect, I should say, or a developmental disability. This does not give them the right to do it. It's only if there's a fatal fetal anomaly to give them the right to determine. I don't think government should be involved in that point. Right. I think that's between the woman,
the doctor, and their God.
Yes. Yep. And at that point, government shouldn't be involved. Why should we tell a parent that you have to have this child and then it's going to die? You have to witness it die in front of you. I don't think that's appropriate. I think that should be left up to the mother and the parent.
Hey, folks, we're talking. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're talking with Senator Mike Moore, who is host here of Politically Speaking, which we do on the first Saturday of every month from 7 to 8 o'clock. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. We do have a call. Joel's been waiting patiently to speak with you, Senator. Good morning, Joel. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2021. Senator Moore is on the line with us, as well as myself. Joel, good morning.
Hi, guys. Happy New Year, Mr. Mangiacotti and Mr. Moore. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Senator Moore, as you probably can says, I'm a government guy like you. I believe in the private. I misspoke. Yeah. I believe in the public sector much more than the private.
I just thought
sector.
I went into the twilight zone for a
Joe
split second.
Joe knows where I'm coming from when I say that. I hate the private sector. But, I should have called earlier. I mean, it's almost 8 o'clock, so I don't have much time. Senator Moore, how much did Massachusetts, how much did they give to the Boston Red Sox to have their AAA team in Worcester, Mass?
How much did they give?
I'm talking about how much did the state contribute to the ballpark, and how much did Worcester contribute to the ballpark?
Joe, I don't.
Generally speaking, of course, I don't want.
Yeah, I don't have. If you would ask me a year ago, I could give you the number right off the top of my head. There was a substantial amount of money that was provided. Actually, well, let's put it this way: there was no money given to the Red Sox. The only money that was given was, I shouldn't say given, was authorized to the city of Worcester, was for the building was for the infrastructure.
Right, the infrastructure.
The cost of the building the stadium
2 minutes.
From the Red Sox. But doing all the road work for Kelly Square, putting pipes in, that type of infrastructure is what the state came up with the revenue for.
Oh, so the state and the community of Worcester didn't, I mean, they gave
Nothing
no
went to
money
the Red Sox.
for the building of the stadium at all?
Not from the state. Worcester is actually building the stadium. So the city of Worcester is bonding out and building the stadium. That's
they sold bonds, of course. Senator Moore and Joe, as you know, 99% of the time when a stadium is publicly financed, it never works out good for the community. I mean, that's the history regarding stadiums that are financed by the taxpayers when it comes to building a ballpark.
Yeah, when this whole discussion first came up, myself and some other legislators publicly came out and said that we would not support giving any money to the Red Sox.
No way. Senator and Joe, also, when does the season start? It starts next April, right?
Yeah.
And the Worcester Red Sox are not going to be able to have full capacity in the park because of COVID-19. There'll be fans, but there'll be separation. I mean, there'll be one fan and then maybe a fan 6 feet away or 8 feet away. So the first year, the city of Worcester is going to lose so much money on this park. It's going to be unbelievable as far as I can see it.
Joe, you're right. Unfortunately, I can't control the time. We're against it. Senator Moore, thank you so much again for Politically Speaking. I will catch up with you later. We've got other messages that have come in, so I'll get those to you. Hey, folks, I'll be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. for the Joe Mangiacotti Show Sunday edition. Stick with us here on AM 830 WCRN. Happy New Year, folks.
WACE Chicopee and WCRN.